Welcome to Ducal Drinks. The topic is Masterhoods and Amtgard. Today I am drinking Elysium Night Owl Pumpkin Ale. It's made in Seattle. I haven't had it before. Hopefully it's good. I like pumpkin ale. I like pumpkin spice. I'm very basic. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. We're going to talk about the pass that we are currently interested in because Masterhoods apply to every pass. So we're not talking about one pass specifically. Right now, especially in COVID, I'm much more interested in the Dragon Path and pursuing writing and getting recognition for that. And then Bodley, I'm also interested in the Smith Path, although I got burnt out a little bit, so I'm taking a step back from that. But it's definitely still on my mind. Next, we have Heron.
Yeah. So the paths that I'm most interested in are unfortunately the ones that I can't really do a lot of while we're not playing, which would be Orders of the Warrior, Orders of the Griffin, and Orders of the Smith. I can write battle games, but I can't test them, so it's kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and you can't even see if it's sticking.
Yeah, that's very difficult.
We're introducing our drinks also. I'm drinking mango flavored Mio, and also, to change things up, fruit punch flavored Mio.
Nice. So now we have
strawberry gin, I guess.
Oh, and strawberry jam.
Hi, I'm Unum. I'm drinking Bushmills Irish whiskey and Diet Coke in my Lil Sebastian mug of Parks and Rec fame, if you don't know. I am pursuing the owl path right now and dragon off to the side, a little bit of that. I'd like to get into more artistic leatherwork and things like that. So, but owl is my main focus currently.
And then we have Sploob. Or that boy's
So right now,
my bad.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. Right now, I'm drinking Cider Boys. This one's the Peach County flavor. It's just an apple peach combo. It's actually pretty good. I'm not a big drinker, so finding something that I enjoy is pretty tough. But if you don't drink alcohol often, this stuff's pretty good, and it's like sweet and doesn't really taste like alcohol. And a lot of ciders make me, but this one's good. For Masterhoods, or the path, I guess, that I'm most interested in, probably right now, I would say it's a tie between Owl and Garber. I like things that would be functional outside of the game. So like Owl, I'm interested in, just mechanical things in general, or working with metal. My dad and I purchased a forge last summer, and so we've been meaning to tinker around with it more. We haven't used it as much as we want, but restoring old tools and making new tools, and I think making tools is probably cooler for me than like making weapons or something like that. But for Amtgard, it would be cool to make weapons. So yeah, I think Owl's probably the main focus. Garber, right? Making Garb's always fun. Cosplay too, stuff like that.
I hope that you're also interested in making tutorials because you're really good at them. I'm just saying.
Oh, I mean, I've made like one or two,
and they're really good. I always like your sword one. It's like the most compact one. I send it to everyone that asks, "How do you make a sword?" It's just nice and clean.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'd like to say hi again because he said hi. Also, my beer is freaking amazing. It tastes like pumpkin pie. Usually, pumpkin beers just taste like pumpkin, but this has the pumpkin pie spices in it. So I'm really happy about that.
Like allspice and stuff?
Yeah. So, for people that haven't watched this before, this is a topical show, and we'll go around and we'll start discussing Masterhoods here in a second. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them as much as we can. Try to stay on topic of Masterhoods, though. There'll be some cross-pollination in the questions, but it's mostly Masterhoods. And we have discussion questions, but this is pretty free-form. So, if you have any questions after the show, go ahead and send them to me if you want, or you can post them in the YouTube comments if you're watching this on YouTube, which I will post after in the next few days. Sorry. So we're going to start off with a pretty easy question here for a second. To you, what is Masterhood? I guess it's not really an easy question. It's just a really broad question. Does anyone have any strong thoughts?
Yeah. So to me, Masterhood would be, well, I guess the easy way to phrase it would be mastering a craft or an art or an aspect of the game that you're interested in. And that doesn't necessarily mean you've done everything there is to do in that field, but it means that you're at some level where you're one of the best around. If not in the game, then at least one of the best around.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would say, uh, in like a mathematical standpoint, I would view masterhood as like you're the top 0.5% of your field. You're at least you're like that 99th percentile. You could compete with the best of them. You should compete with the best of them. And really, in your area, you should probably be one of the best, or the best.
Any thoughts, Udom?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Talking about mastery, it's in our game that's I agree with all those points, and I think masterhood in the mundane world, a lot of times people bring that in, and like it to be a master woodworker or something like that. Like you're talking a lifetime of woodworking, but in our game, we have to realize that people can't put in 80 hours a week just for a game, but it definitely requires, based on who is around, what you're up against, what everyone else is doing, it's kind of tough to judge sometimes, but masterhood definitely is kind of absolutely what Heron and Swoop said. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, I'm also agree. I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. Masterhood is masterhood in a path. But to me, and while it's like, as you were saying, it's not like master in the mundane world because it's more a hobby. I mean, we're not going to dedicate some people might dedicate a lifetime, but that's because they're coming from outside the game and coming in, as you mentioned. So, it's basically excelling compared to your peers. Because for me, when I think about masterhood, it's judging and how you judge it. You judge it based on the other people around you. So it's kind of like a rising tide helps everyone. I forget the exact word, but basically everyone competes, and you compete, and the best of the best kind of rise to the top, like cream rises to the top. Anyways,
Cream of the crop.
yeah. Oh man, love Randy Savage. Anyways, so yeah, agree with all the points. I mean, but I guess the takeaway is that it's a hobby, and that you shouldn't be expected to dedicate your life to getting these masterhoods, because it is a hobby, but it does take some time and skill, dedication. But it's comparative to a hobby rather than a lifetime of life path. I guess is my distinction.
That comes in, like is already like artisan woodworker. Do you think they should have to prove really hard? Like, do you think they should have to be even better than masters, or is that a further question down?
If who does?
So it's the people that have dedicated their life to a craft that happens to be applicable to our game. So like a woodworker or
Okay.
something. Mm-hmm.
For me personally, and I've talked a lot about this with Locks, we've had a lot of conversations about this, and it's if you come in at a 7, you might have to take a couple extra steps, but as long as you if you do 7 things at the 7th level, then you get your 7th award. You still have to do the previous steps, but you don't have to increase your own skill along the way. You just have to get 7th within like the comparable range of the hobby, but you still have to take the time be in the culture, to be in the competitions, to show off your work. So it still takes some time, even if you are like at master level, for example. You come in, you still have to show around your work for a while and wait for the awards and be part of the culture to a degree. Because
That
that's
makes
actually
sense.
really a question, because a lot of the people, they're not told this as much, but some people say you have to do better than what you did beforehand to get the next award. And that just sets an impossible standard sometimes. And it's just, oh, thank you for the follow. It's just for some people, that's just an impossible standard. If you come in with no skill, I mean, it's maybe somewhat reasonable. But if you are already a master, you shouldn't have to be better than a master to get masterhood.
See, that's kind of like damaging, anyways. Like even if you're a complete beginner, right? Because you would start out with something. So you're like, oh, I'm just starting, and you're like, oh yeah, I made my first cape or something, and you're like, woohoo! But then like your next project, you either have to limit yourself. Like say you learned a lot of skills making that cape, you have to limit yourself a ton on your next project, so that it's not too hard to get your third after your second, your fourth, and so on. So I think that ladder system for judging our mastery can be kind of damaging for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes it can set you try to game the system where you set as you're saying, you're limiting yourself to further yourself. And I found I've done that, and I do that to some degree, plan out my path a little bit and don't do this project yet because I want to do something a little bit easier first. A little bit's fine, but no, as a standard, I agree that shouldn't be the standard. You have an opinion, Heron?
Um, yeah, I do see sometimes people will say that you have to exceed what you did past, but um, I don't know. If somebody comes in and they make something really good, like Sploob was saying, where they learned a lot of skills in that project, then if they demonstrate those again, but both of the projects were at like a second or third level or a fourth level, they should still be advancing, even though they're not necessarily improving on their previous work, although I'm sure they would at least a little bit. Um, like, yeah, that kind of sets people up to have to achieve so much higher heights than somebody who is like slowly learning things, and that just feels kind of weird.
Did you have anything you want to throw in there, Unum?
No, I think we covered it on that one.
This actually reminded me of a problem in the path that when it comes to someone that has skill coming into the game. For example, Ruwana, she was a local artisan that came in with a skill set at probably at least an 8. Just she was showing off eight level projects, but she had no like projects, and so she made a bunch of projects. Most of them varied between like 6 to 8, and all really good. But she had this unrealistic expectation that you're just gonna shoot up there because you come in here, you do all these great projects, and then you kind of hit a plateau and you have to advance a little bit more, but you drastically slow down, and so they can get frustrated. So sometimes people get frustrated when they have that skill set. They come in here and they think it's going to stay on the same trajectory, the same like time limit, and then they get discouraged because it doesn't happen. I don't know if she is discouraged. I'm just saying it does happen.
With like specific like paths, like Garber, for example, one examples in like the award standardization, they kind of give you like I think like an example of a 10th level project is court garb for an entire fighting company, something like that. And it makes me kind of confused in the sense of, is it about the quality of the court garb, or is it about the quantity? And so are we judging masterhood on skills or time and the ability to be a factory?
In my experience in our region, and it's a really good question for Unum because he's been to other regions, or at least one other region. Um, when I look at it, and most of the people I've talked to, it's not about time. Definitely matters. The amount of work you put into something, project should be more complicated, should take more effort, skill. But well, I lost track of my thought. Oh no,
Oh,
we
we
lost
lost
Unum.
Unum.
He'll be back.
Sure, he'll be back.
But I guess did I answer the root of your question?
No.
No. What was the question again?
It was
Sorry.
it's like I guess it's the weight of showing advanced skills versus producing a lot of things. Mhm.
Yeah, that was my point. It takes some time, but it's not. I don't think it's the quantity necessarily, but the time, the complexity, the skill that took to get there. I don't think you have to do. If you do some amazing garb that took 100 hours or something like that, you shouldn't have had to do it 10 times to get that award. You did master level work. You did master level work. At least specifically with the arts.
Yeah, but if you did like if you made 35s, would it be higher than a 5?
I would not think so.
So like you garbed an entire company with 5 level garb? No.
That sounds more like service, honestly.
It is listed in the award standardization,
Is it?
so you can see my confusion, right?
I can see that confusion.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily say the level, but it's like court garb for an entire company. So it definitely is taking into account volume.
So that just might be my own problem or my own interpretation, and that some people agree with. But it might be different in other areas. Unum, did you hear the question?
Sorry, I had issue. I had to rejoin the call. What's the question?
So basically, well, I'll go ahead and let Blue say it. He said it
so
pretty succinctly.
yeah, in certain paths we have in the award standardization, like Garber, an example for a 10th order of the Garber would be court garb for an entire company or household. So my question was, when it comes to Masterhood, how do you weigh quality versus quantity?
And I said for around here, it's more quality versus quantity. Like you did one master crafted garb or court garb, you didn't have to do 10 of them to garb a whole company to get the master. You just had to do the master garb project.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, if it's 10 sets of court garb, that's just court garb, general, basic stuff. But if it's 10, 9 or 10th level sewing jobs, garbing jobs, I mean, that's, I think it could be, because that's labor, that's, and it, especially if they're all very similar in construction, like they're not wavering in quality and design. They're all, it's like, boom, he did, they did this exactly the same every single time. That takes skill, and getting all the patterning done and everything. So, I mean, I think quantity could be considered. I don't think it's, something to ignore.
Harry, did you have a comment?
No, I think it was covered pretty well.
So I guess to if I can, then so do you think consistency is important for somebody's masterhood? Like, if somebody is like entering competitions, do they need to consistently be entering competitions at the level they are? Like, would it be detrimental to them to have a bad competition? So they enter a Dragon Master, and one Dragon Master, they're entering 5s instead of 8s like they normally do. Is that bad for like, does that count against them almost in their masterhood consistency?
So I guess I need to clarify what I said before because I said it wrong. I was talking about the awards, like 10th. I guess for Masterhood specifically, you would have to do more than, you could potentially have to do more than just one project. So you might need to make multiple levels of project to show that you're mastered in that area. So since this is about Masterhood, I probably should have answered the question about Masterhood because it's more ambiguous, which is completely, I guess, your point. So yeah, I guess there is a time element. But to answer your question specifically, I think to get your masterhood, you have to be competing at the high level. If you stumble, like, and you only do the 5s or something like that, people, at least around here, will judge your work to not be as favorable for masterhood because you're not consistent. So consistency, I think, is the key. Now, sometimes you don't want to put in the effort. That And if you're going for your Masterhood, then maybe you should contemplate not entering that Dragon Master if you're just going to do 5s, because it'll make you look like you're not consistent. Has anyone here been a judge on ANS for?
Only for local. When I was regent at Silver Moon, I was a judge, sort of.
Oh, and I just got Loctavian also said can we get good judges. I guess that's a really good transition. But I've judged ANS qual or Kingdom level ANS quals, and our judging is in our area at least is not the greatest because we have so everyone's trying to standardize it, which is good, and we're getting better at it. But we don't have. I mean, we're a hobby, and it's hard to get judges, and not every judge is going to know every field. So having consistency and good rubrics is important, and I think it's something that we should develop. And it would help. Maybe those 5s really weren't 5s; just had the wrong people judging it because they don't know the craft. And I've seen that. Like sculptures, I've seen look really easy to do, but they're actually difficult because they got rid of all the blemishes and stuff like that. And it actually takes some skill. But other people are like, oh, that's a basic walking stick, and like no, they had to put some effort into sculpting that to make it look that good. So people just don't have the. Some people just don't have the general knowledge. So those rubrics to help guide us would be a really good thing, I think.
I do like rubrics. I gotta be right back, though. I gotta let someone inside the apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of rubrics too. I mean, I tried to implement them for even just local level events.
Yeah.
Like, I hosted like a chili cook-off, and I created a scoring card in a sense, like to help at least guide the judges towards consistent scoring. That way, they were all scoring on the same things, as opposed to one judge would like scoring on spice, or one judge scoring on like a texture or something like that.
Yeah.
If you can get them to all kind of focus in one area, maybe they can be a little more consistent. But if you do have judges lacking skill, I don't know how you can get there. If they just don't know what to recognize, or they don't know what a good example of the craft is, can they really make a judgment?
Yeah, that's the hard part. Because we can't have a judge. It's hard to fill judges for every contingency. But if we have, I think a judge should ask questions to people. I like the idea where people actually actively talk about their project. I think that is better. I don't care too much about anonymity because we don't really have that in this game. It's too small. And we can a little bit, but I think we could get a better understanding of someone's work if we talk to them and talk about the details and the work that went into it.
Presenting is big, yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think that there are definitely some crafts where the presentation of your work is a pretty big part of the demonstration of your skill. And like you said, anonymity is really difficult to achieve because if I'm putting something into a competition, there's a pretty high likelihood that it will be green and gold and have a heron on it, probably. And there aren't many people that would do that. So, like,
Yeah, I
Plus-
definitely think anonymity is a thing of the past, really.
So
Hopefully you're selecting, like objective judges, and not people with strong biases. They probably should be avoid judging at least. And the demonstration, yeah, I would agree with Heron. I do think it would be a big part of it if you can demonstrate specifically, or like talk about specific areas in the craft that you did something special, you did something different, something out of the norm, something that actually is high skill that a judge may not know on their own. Like a specific process you could go into depth about. The attention to detail it takes, or what attention to detail in things you've done. So like, yeah, smoothing down edges and stuff like that maybe would be missed.
Yep, I think it's an important thing to add.
I think at the moment it is a pretty big deal to have a good write-up. Everybody talks about if you want to win a Dragon Master, you need to make sure you have a good write-up. They're printed properly, I suppose, but also that you talk about your process because judges don't necessarily know your craft. And honestly, I think that if somebody had a chance to talk about their work, it might clear up a lot of like weird confusion stuff that happens from just bad write-ups or incomplete write-ups. I don't know. I like the idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, the idea didn't come from me. It came from Locke in our conversations. And I haven't really heard too many people complain about it. The idea, I haven't talked to a lot of people about it, but people seem to be favorable to it because, as Heron is saying, write-ups are important. Like when I entered the last Dragon Master, I made sure to explain what I did, the steps I did to take to get to the point that I got to, and to show the difficulty to get to where I was. So I think it's important, and it'd be a lot easier to just do it in person.
Do you think we could steal rubrics from, like real world competitions, other games, other societies?
I think that's the way to go. I also think it's slightly important to get some of the feedback from the masters in the specific areas that we have in the game, so it's kind of like tailored to our culture. But taking in the professional or other groups rubrics and being as a starting point, great idea. Oh, Brittany posted something really big. Hold on a second. Well, you can keep talking. I'm just going to be reading for a minute.
Okay.
Well, now I want to read it.
I'll just read it out loud. It is also hard for contestants. When your projects are judged at different levels, it is hard to know how to improve or how to know where you place. The same kind of projects can earn a 4.1 competition and a third the next. Very true. It's like if you don't get good feedback and the feedback is varied, it's difficult to improve based off just the feedback that you get in contests, which is how a lot of people like start evolving their craft. They like, oh, this person said I didn't do this. I look into this subject and I go from there. So feedback's really important. So if we could, not have the variation as much, it'd be really nice. And no, not steal.
We have,
Borrow.
at least in our region, it seems like there's probably a little bit of a limited peerage to look to for like molding our judges. So, do you think we could look outside of the kingdom too to maybe like improve that or what?
I mean, absolutely. If we don't have the people to cover the subject, we should definitely look outside of our own area. And if we can't find it in the game, we can look to the real world.
So I believe we had some questions that we wanted to get to today.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Not that these aren't great, also, but I think this ties in a little bit to your question that you'd posed about what is masterhood.
yeah.
And I think we've expanded a lot on our answers there. It's being really good. It's also doing a bunch of work, maybe. It's doing quality work. It's doing is presenting your work well. Is it also teaching people well? Is that something?
My distinction for this, and I'm pretty certain, like, it's a strong opinion. You do not have to teach to be a master. You just have to prove that you're a master of the skill. Now, in knighthood, that's a whole nother ballgame, and that's where I think the teaching and the being a leader in the field matters a little bit more. How you impact the people around you through teaching or other inclusive activities related to your field. That's where you become a knight, and I think that is one of the biggest distinctions between a master, which is skill based, and a knighthood, which is more ethereal, I guess. So, no, you don't have to teach. Is it a good way to demonstrate your skill? Yes. And it might be the way you do it, but I don't think it is a requirement. For me, anyways.
Yeah, I don't think teaching has anything to do with mastery. I think mastery is a hermit's goal, I think there's definitely some truth in the saying that those who can't do teach, and the true masters probably have developed such a skill for a craft that teaching would be almost impossible for them, or not impossible, but more difficult, I think, because things that are second nature that they might skip over in teaching.
Yeah. And teaching a lot comes down to demonstration at that point for those kind of skills. But you have to follow along, catch the little details of the person may skip over.
I actually do like that answer. I do think knighthood definitely requires some. It definitely requires you to reach out and help other people in your kingdom. It's more of a position of service, but I don't think masterhood necessarily requires it.
Yeah. Unum, your opinion?
Well, for every master, there's an apprentice, right? So,
Oh, true.
no, seriously. I mean, yeah, I agree. It helps along if you're pursuing knighthood as well. Shows that you have enough knowledge, and you also have the aptitude to share that knowledge, which not everyone has. I struggle with it a lot because there's things I do in my work that I don't remember that when I teach someone. Like that's just something that's automatic that I do or I think of. It's hard for me to relay that information to someone else. So
Yeah. So there was another thing kind of related to that is talking about like requirements for masterhood. I like the idea of like being like someone that evolves whatever path you're on. I think that at some point when you're getting to masterhood, you should be evolving the craft in your area. If that makes any sense, like taking ideas, learning the skills, and then putting your own spin on it, and trying to evolve that area. That's less to do with. Yeah, it's not night talk, but I think that but I wanted to highlight the distinction between knighthood and masterhood. I guess we should be putting more importance on masterhood. But I think the evolving the craft is really important for like service and stuff. I always try to learn and evolve and do something new in the field to showcase that I was a master in the area. So for service, anyways, that's my experience. Oh yeah, green. Okay.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that. Veilnorn is masterhood at some point. I don't know if it needs to be before somebody becomes a master, but definitely while they are actively participating in being a master, they should definitely be trying to elevate at least something in their craft for the culture. Yeah, for sure. Like people doing owls, like be it field tech, they should definitely be pushing testing new materials, trying to really improve, you know, just tech for equipment or garbers, testing different stitch types, the durability, materials, for sure.
What about you? And you're think you're one of the people here that's pretty close to the Alpath attaining masterhood. What do you think of the idea of you having to do something to kind of elevate your field or elevate your field a little bit?
oh, fortunately, in as far as what I do, like leather work and weapon crafting, there's an infinite number of ways to do that. I mean, there's so many crafts related to that and materials and things that haven't been done or haven't been seen here that I mean, I'm always thinking of new ways to incorporate what I can do and new things to learn. So that's always on my mind to expand my skills. Every project I do, I make sure to learn something new, incorporate something new into it. So, I think that's important to always challenge yourself with every project, no matter what.
And yes, Uriel, I agree. He is pushing the envelope and he's won inter kingdom competition. He's doing great. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask is like so people can understand like the mindset, especially when you're really higher up there, about the things that someone like that's like kind of pushing to evolve their craft thinks about. And these are things that a lot of people have in common at the higher levels that are still pushing the path. And so that's why I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, which he did wonderfully. What do you think, Aaron?
It's kind of difficult because as far as advancing your field, it really depends on the path. If you're doing garb, you can be like, I'm gonna make something so like fantastic and complicated that like that it puts me head and shoulders above everyone else. If it's fighting, you can be like, I'm gonna win a bunch of tournaments for a long time by a lot. But it's hard to say for every path because if you're doing Smith, it's like, well, what is head and shoulders of everyone else? Just because there isn't that linear progression, you can look at two dresses and say, well, that one's fancier, that one's more complicated. But how do you compare like an event and like a series of battle games? How do you compare like a quest with a series of battle games? How do you compare like all these other things? Especially when you get to like service projects, are also another really not objective sort of thing. I think it's really subjective, and that's really hard to say you're advancing your field all the time.
Coming from that background, from the outside, when you're not involved with the field, it can seem like difficult. You don't really know how to do that. But for example, like Unum learning new skills, looking at other people's work, trying to ask, how do you do this so I can, do it as well. And like running events is very similar to that. You evolve your event, you do better, you try to do better every time. You try to lead your team better if you're the autocrat. And you look at other events of like, what did they do right? What did they do wrong? What can I incorporate? What can I improve upon? So there is that in service as well. Same thing with battle games. You look at other people's battle games. As Uriel was saying, kind of like, what is the exact wording?
I mean, I
Inspiration
agree
and
that
raising others up. That's what Uriel said.
I agree though there are some things that's difficult because like the fighters when it does come to it's like how do you change fighting entirely, like how do you elevate that? I mean, like sure you could get master in fighting and then or warlord in fighting and then do it again left-handed or focus completely on your worst style, but like technique wise, what are you bringing to the table? Especially in stick tag, At the end of the day, I'm not sure there's too many advancements, but maybe there are, and since I'm just a novice in it, I just wouldn't recognize the potential.
I guess that's partly my point is that if you're not ingrained, you're a novice in an area, you might not see the technical evolutions at the smaller scale about why someone chose to do this instead of that. And it's so I think every path, the people that are like dedicated, quite often have the mindset for the same, like it's crafting. Like was talking about how he views crafting and doing better and better. I think people in their own paths have a similar mindset to their own niche. Let's see, Loctavian says, I think of advancements different. Like, let's look at something like Project Runway. No one there is better than the others, but innovation in making it their style. So that's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, same like cooking too, right? Like putting your own spin on a dish or, using strange ingredients, elevating them. Sure.
Yeah. So, like, Uriel says, like, or Loctavian00, like, others have the same skills Udom has, but you can tell his work from other leather workers at the same time, at the same skill, because he has his own, like, twist on the skill.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I take a lot of my background as like mundane leather work, so I learned Western tooling and all that, So that's what I like enjoy, and I try to bring that into what I do. So yeah, it's I guess making it your own, really.
Yeah. Uriel. Brynjar brings up like something where I was going to talk about later because he brought this up to me, but I will go ahead and bring it up now. He says old practices was to get a general consensus from the relative other masters and nobility title before presenting the award. Although it opens the chance of gatekeeping, it also has pertinent information to the monarch. So essentially, like circles, like a nut circle, but for masters, but not official. So they would, the monarch would go around asking, like, if you're Master Rose, they'd ask all the Master Rose, what do you think about this person? And weigh in. What do you think of that as a formal thing, an informal thing, or something we should not do at all? Anyone want to go first?
In ones that are pursued via competition, you're already doing that with those masters creating good rubrics, making good judges, being good judges, stuff like that. I don't know if you necessarily need to then, after they've consistently made somebody win Dragon Masters, do you believe they should be a master? Sure, opinions are good. It's always good to look outside of yourself because you could have bias that you need checked, but like a circle, that idea seems gross to me. No way.
Unum, how long have you been playing? I forgot to ask before we started. Just roughly.
So I guess in total, probably 6 years, I think.
Oh, okay. Back where you're from, do you know if they did that at all? Like we used to do that in like VSR a long time ago.
I wasn't in long enough to know anything about Masterhoods or
Okay.
anything. So I just knew about knighthood at that time. So it was, but at that point, the whole knighting system when I started was in 2005-ish, 2004. So it was a completely different system. So than what we have now to be, before the standardization and all that. So I don't have a lot of old knowledge along those lines. Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on the idea, Aaron?
Yeah. I think that any situation where you're trying to rely on is complicated because other masters are going to be able to tell you to some degree what master level work is just by the quality of their work, and you have someone to compare to. I worry a little bit when you say you must gain the approval of this like group of 4 people to become a master, because their idea of what a master is, it might cover themselves, but I'm not sure it would always cover something that is master quality work, but is, I don't know, different from their own, because everybody's got their own perspectives, and just there aren't enough masters that I think all of them know what counts as masterhood all the time. Like, I'm sure they might, but it leaves some possibilities for people to be excluded and gate kept out of something that they might have earned.
I basically agree with everyone here about the no hard like votes, like you have to vote. But I think it's really important to go around and talk to the masters in the field that are active to get an opinion, especially if you're like a monarch or a king that may be pretty new. You don't know because the culture as well as maybe some of the people. So I think it's valuable for anything, honestly, to get other opinions when you're making a decision. Mm-hmm. So I think the idea of having a advisory board in a unofficial capacity, pretty good idea. Having an official thing, I think the gatekeeper problem would be a problem, and I wouldn't like to introduce that at all. Oh,
Because at that point, you would also have a bunch of knights who are already in their own circle, also in a Masterhood circle, which is kind of weird.
oh, Brunier
Double
wanted
gatekeeping.
to clarify something. Never like passing a circle. Okay, it was just like gathering opinion and information, much like our DM. Not every judge is well versed in a particular craft and the additional advice. So I mean, I agree with that. We used to have something, and it's I don't remember if it was taken out, but like the College of Arts and Sciences and Guild Masters for the different like arts and sciences and stuff like that. So I kind of like the idea of having something a little role play, formal, informal, an advisory board idea. But you should definitely, I think, asking advice is perfectly valid. Uriel says, I was going to say the same. When I was Monarch and Regent recently, I found people who were masters or near to get feedback, since I wanted to be sure I wasn't using bias. Exactly. When I was king, I had the same idea. I'd go around and ask people that were knowledgeable in the area before I made a decision. So,
That's a monarch doing due diligence. It's not necessarily like a. I don't think that is gone. I think that still exists.
and Black Spire does lessened considerably from my experience. They may still do it, but I like specifically. There's an instance of Paragon Archer going out. No, the Paragons were consulted. I know that firsthand from one in one instance, but it's been a little bit lessened in the recent memory. But this actually translates into another question I wanted to bring up. What would you do if you're in the position to give out a masterhood? What would you do to make the decision to give out a masterhood? And let's say it's a masterhood for something that you know almost nothing about personally.
Objectively look at the accolades. Obviously, yeah, like I was saying, I think doing your due diligence is reaching out to the existing masters, but I think it's also reaching out to the artisans, and the journeymen, because I think people that are learning a skill and like really trying to progress themselves in a skill know what mastercraft work is. They may not just be able to produce it, or they haven't done it yet. I think the people that are nerds about it, passionate about it, like, man, if you take somebody that's learning blacksmithing and you say, "Hey, do you think this is masterwork?" I bet you they could be a better judge than somebody that's not into it at all. So yeah, I think you want to look at anybody that's super interested in the craft, regardless of their actual skill.
I'd agree with that. You can reach out to anybody who's enthusiastic in your kingdom. I also think you can reach out to other kingdoms. The standard might be different in other kingdoms for what masterhood is, but you can just kind of get other perspectives, especially from people that might not know the person. So that could be another way to get feedback as well if you're not familiar yourself.
I would agree with Locke in chat too. Judging is its own skill. It's not necessarily your skill in the craft.
Yeah.
Like, food critics aren't always master chefs,
Yeah. Oh, Locke says, so to be honest, Amtgard needs to get away from high-level awards equal judging skill. Judging is its own skill. That's very true. What do you think, Gunnar? What would you do before you give out a masterhood?
I mean, yeah, try to speak with as many people that are close to that subject. I mean, it's really, I think it's been covered pretty well.
Yeah, I think most people would agree that if you don't know an area, you go reach out for someone that does know the area to help make a judgment call. So glad we all pretty much agree on that.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Actually, I think I would ask the person themselves. Do you think you're a master? And I think that could be really telling on if they're happy with their work, or if they think they need to improve. I know people can be their harshest critics, so you don't have to always take them 100% because probably the best of us, or the ones that are getting to that master level. They're on this part of this Dunning-Kruger where they think they're garbage. The people that are getting close to the top always tend to think they suck. But I think you should have them look at themselves as objective as possible. That's their opinion.
That's a good philosophy. I gotta apologize if there's a really close thunderstorm that's or shaking the house. So if I lose power, I apologize if the stream comes down.
I'm not excited about thunder. I hope there's rain. I don't want fires, more fires.
Yeah. Spoob, do you want to say what Dunning-Kruger is and how it applies here?
So yeah, Dunning-Kruger is like I don't want to say an inverse relation. It's a graph that goes somebody's time and skill in a subject versus how much they think they know about it. So somebody that knows nothing about something, they would think they know nothing, but the moment they learn a little bit, like they start dipping their foot into something, they quickly are gaining knowledge and they're learning really fast, so they think they know everything. They think they're the best in their craft. They not the best, but they think they're incredibly skilled or know a lot about their subject. And as they learn more, they realize maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did, and then their understanding or what they believe they know plummets. It goes down, down, down. The more they learn, the less they think they actually know, or it's in a way somebody developing imposter syndrome almost.
I've never heard of that term, but I understand it completely.
It comes up a lot in video games with online ranked matchmaking.
Yeah.
Because
Silvers
people
think they're good.
Yeah.
And platinums
Blue
think they're
gets it.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I struggle with the imposter syndrome thing. So I've never heard of that. That's very, very interesting.
I tried to explain this.
Fell victim to it before.
I tried to explain this with to Indra, but he was having none of that. The idea that he didn't know something.
Yeah. I think it's something that it shows up some other places. Basically, it boils down to people. They learn enough to know that they don't know everything.
Yeah.
But then there's people who don't know enough to know that they're bad at something. It's like, which can lead to a lot of success, honestly. If you don't expect yourself to fail because you think you're good at it, maybe it'll go pretty well.
There's a conversation going on about Dragon Master right now, and I think it's in the chat, and then it's a good conversation, but I don't know how far we want to go down that rabbit hole. It could be its own topic.
Typing my answers to that one.
So, I mean, I just apologize for people that are talking about that in chat. That's why I haven't really brought up that subject this immediately, because we're kind of skirting around it, but I didn't want to just dive deep into Dragon Master and judging completely. Although, it's tangentially appropriate.
Judging, some crafts and some fields, right? If we're still on the topic of awarding and how you would go about deciding on giving somebody a masterhood, some crafts just or fields in their own just kind of do it for you, right? Like that person, like Warlord almost just kind of sets itself. Like, sure, there's a little bit like you're comparing among the skill of the people they achieved the award, but it's pretty hard cut, right?
Yeah.
What is a Warlord?
It's pretty clear cut, yeah.
And then things are more subjective. So, like, Crown, I think, is really hard in this case since it has a masterhood now.
Oh, yeah.
It's like judging a quality of a reign, I think, is incredibly difficult.
And out of the arts and sciences, the services are pretty hard to judge. For sure. And that is, I consider that a service, obviously. It's not one of the service paths, but it is downpouring outside.
People have mixed ideas, between like what rose is, and other things like that.
Yeah.
Lions.
Oh, here's one. Why pursue a masterhood? Why do it?
Because
Why
you
would?
want to, and for no other reason.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say don't pursue a masterhood. Period. Right? You're not. Why would you pursue a masterhood? That's really like getting ahead of yourself. That's putting the what is? Oh man, I can't even
The
remember the
cart before the
saying.
horse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're putting the carriage before the horse. It's like just do what you're passionate about, and a masterhood will follow. If you're really passionate about it, the masterhood should be the reflection of your passion, your dedication, your discipline.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I mean, a lot of people put their not to touch on Dragon Masters, but a lot of people try to fill out all the Dragon Master tick boxes and try to get win and win and win, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to push you any farther. I don't think, but
Yeah.
I think do what you're passionate about. Yeah, I mean that's very important. What makes you happy, in my opinion. Do something you're proud of, like just super proud of, like this. Look at what I made. I feel really happy about it. And even if you don't think it's the greatest thing, if I think making yourself happy and making other people happy around you is a goal. It's a goal of mine. I think it's useful. It's mentally healthy. So
Yeah, you can be a master without having a masterhood, for sure. If you're making stuff you're proud of, it probably doesn't matter.
I kind of agree. Well, I don't kind of agree. I almost absolutely agree with Uriel. What they've been saying in chat is you set goals along a path. Mastery might not necessarily be the goal, but if you set goals for yourself and you just happen to go along that path, and that's how sounds like how they pursued their paths. They didn't pursue masterhood specifically, just doing what they liked, setting goals along that path. Eventually, masterhood came, which I basically agree with. For me, uh, it's kind of hard to remember what I initially thought for my rose path because it was so long ago. But for like working on dragon or smith, like I just kind of did things that had fun, improve upon certain skills along the path. Then when I got to the point where it was, obtainable, like I'll be honest, I had a goal that I wanted to get masterhood, but then I would set goals before that to like in the path to, you know, expand upon my own skill. So I don't think you should definitely do it if you want to do it, not because you have to do it. But I don't think having a goal of masterhood is necessarily a bad thing. But basically, yeah, do it because you want to, not because you have to. Did you have any more for Heron? I know you looked like you were going to say something.
No, I was actually reading the chat here, and
Oh, okay.
we had a question about masterhood of classes.
Oh, I didn't want to talk too much about paragons. It's going to get brought up at one of the questions. Kind of brings it up that I was going to talk about.
Actually.
Oh, but I was going to do its own paragon be its own discussion topic at one point, so I don't want to get too deep into that.
Brynjar asks about specific benchmarks that are key for masterhood of class. I feel like we kind of went over it, but I guess we could hone more in on that probably.
He was talking about like playing the class paragons.
Oh, gotcha. Not of the field. I see.
Yeah.
I misread it then. Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I read it. I could be misreading it too.
I guess to briefly touch on it, I think that a lot of the things are pretty similar. If you're a master of a craft, then you're, like we said, you're one of the best in the area. That part is still going to come up. Teaching, I think, has to be more part of becoming a master of a class. Just because To be honest, the depth of knowledge for becoming a paragon of a class isn't as deep as becoming like a master garber. There's a lot of field knowledge, there's a lot of athleticism and things that go into it, but you can pretty regularly become a paragon. I think anybody can become a paragon in a couple years if they put their mind to it. Which obviously takes people a lot longer for crafts unless they're really going hard on it. So I think teaching has to be a bigger part, but otherwise, just being one of the best around is good.
Yeah. Sorry, you can go ahead, Belner.
Oh no, if you're going to feed off that thought, do it.
I would agree. I would echo that. I think mastering a single class is way shallower than becoming a master in one of the paths. In my experience, I almost feel like the paragon or master of a class is a gift given to somebody to keep their interest in the game stronger, reward them for consistently doing something. I don't know if it's always really equal to their skill in a class. I think it has to more to do with how they portray it, how they make the class seem fun on the field, enjoyable, improve flavor in gameplay. I mean, help their team, not necessarily like their actual like entire skill. Obviously, like skill in a class doesn't just mean your solo skill. Like team is important for that too. But I don't know. I think the more to it, like the way they dress, the way they act, the way they personify the class is more important for Paragon than mastery of a skill.
I just want to interject, so it didn't seem like I was speaking for Octavian. So they said, I guess I should say, I pursued increased skill and mastery of my field, so the paper was icing, but without wanting to be a master, I don't think I'd have gotten there. So I guess, having something to strive for.
Everybody
That
has
makes
different
sense.
goals. Mm-hmm.
No. Let's see, so yeah, I guess we did cover some of these topics already. But I guess I will weigh on the Paragons versus Masterhood. Completely agree. I don't have any Paragons. I got close to one in V6, I think, just based on how well I knew Barbarian, played it religiously, and I was known as the Barbarian person for a long time. But it's definitely seems like it takes it takes less time, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily say less dedication because you still have to be pretty dedicated, depending on the monarch that's handing it out and stuff like that. But that definitely
Yeah, I may be biased. I may feel like I got my Paragon with little to no effort. So maybe I feel undeserving of it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I should have denied it. It seemed like it came down to performance in a specific aspect, and it was abusing a class that I think is broken to do decently well in competitive class battles, Phoenix League. So yeah,
The Druid.
yeah.
Well, on one hand, Masterhoods take more time, can take more time, and can take more breadth of skill. But on the other hand, that's not what we're playing. Paragons are what the game's about, and so like I almost feel like I don't know if they shouldn't necessarily be harder, but there should be some kind of acknowledgement that just doesn't seem to be given in our area. They don't, if that makes any sense. They just don't seem to be. They should be a little bit more important, I think, than they are now. They shouldn't necessarily be given out as easily. I don't know if yours is given out very easily because I don't know. I'm not as ingrained in the games they used to be, so it's hard for me to judge some of the people that got Paragon because I'm not as knowledgeable as they used to be in this edition.
Mm-hmm.
In between, probably.
I don't know about anyone else, but anytime I see, I don't have any Paragons, but anytime I see like the Silverline sash, like I know that I can go to that person and they will probably know the answer to my question, no matter what it is. Like, so I still revere that in my mind to like a knighthood. Like, if I have a question about a knighthood path, I can go ask that person the question. I feel the same way about paragons and classes in my mind. So,
I mean, that leads into
Should
another.
there be master classes? Like, and not like master, like the same as Paragon, but I mean like just class in general, like above Paragon, or a a combination of multiple Paragons or something like that. I think there was a discussion or looking into that in a newer version or award style. I'm not too privy to it.
People basically seem to come to the consensus that there should be some kind of knighthood based on classes before that, or playing the actual game, that would lead naturally to a masterhood in the game field. But I don't know what people have been saying about the masterhood element should be. It's been all over the board. Well, sounds like a V9 idea. Yeah. Before something like that it's going to be some time before something like that's agreed upon. But I think playing the game should be highlighted more than it is. That's for sure. And what do you think about masterhood? The importance of masterhood compared to knighthood, because that's been going around, and I've talked about it with my friends a bit in the last year or two. But what in the kind of conversation that we've had, I kind of brought up because I want masterhood to be more important, so that's why I wanted to talk about masterhood tonight. What is your opinion? Anyone want to jump in? It's Blue.
I think they should be separate. That's right off the bat here. I think knighthood and masterhood should be two different things. I don't
Completely?
think a masterhood should be required to be a knight. I think that 10 orders of something should be required, but I think they should be separate beyond that. I think somebody should be able to become a knight without being a master. The knight would be the person that's showing their willingness to teach, to inspire people to do this craft, show this craft off, make it cool, make it enjoyable. Where the masterhood is just the person that's pushing their ass, like making the shit good, beautiful stuff, awesome work, great skill. I think that it should be different. It's hard to do that in fighting, but
I actually think that fighting is one of the most important places that we should make that distinction. Okay. I think that a lot of people like there's a pretty big disparity between like the types of people who wind up becoming knights or warlords in the Order of the Warrior. And one of the things that's like totally bizarre to me is that in order to be a Knight of the Sword, which is somebody who's supposed to like teach other fighters and help them get better, in order to like be a Knight of the Sword, you have to be like the best in your kingdom. And you have to be the best in your kingdom like 4 times at big tournaments with sufficient competition. So realistically, you have to be the best in your kingdom like 6 or 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's really bizarre because a lot of the people who have been really good teachers to me, they're people who are like stuck at 5 to 8 orders of the warrior. And I feel like we should still be able to recognize those people in a way other than like hoping they eventually climb up to the 10th order of the warrior. And I honestly think that that's one where teaching is more important than the demonstration of your skill. Like, I'm not sure I would consider like a master garber or like a serpent knight. I think is one where showing the demonstration of your personal skill is important, but I think for the other ones less so. I don't know.
I mean, like, there exists sword knights because of old things, where they had like defender titles or whatnot,
Or
right?
Griffins too.
Right.
Yeah.
So like we have Delos, who a lot of people would agree is a good example of a sword knight, but he doesn't have a warlord. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have warlord.
No, he doesn't.
And he doesn't compete in tournaments, but he's very active in teaching. He's passionate about fighting. He's definitely a very strong fighter, probably, in the top 20. I don't know. It would be hard to judge that for me. But I think he's a great example of what a knight can be without being a master.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I don't know whether he has a knighthood or how he might get it, but if somebody's going really hard on teaching fighting, I feel like a lot of the time they might actually wind up progressing along other ladders from like teaching classes. They might wind up getting smiths or lions or something. But I think for Knight of the Sword, that's like the perfect example, I think.
Well, how would we quantify it then? Knighthood, like, because it would take like some amount of skill. Well, I mean, not necessarily demonstrative skill, but how would you gauge their ability to teach?
What is it? There's an award that is directly based on honor. Griffin?
Griffin, yeah.
Knighthood should be Griffin based. Like it should definitely yeah, I don't know.
For everything or just Sword Knight?
I'm getting deep in the ciders. No, not just for Sword Knight, for everything. Yeah. If you can't have a certain level of Griffins, you probably shouldn't be a knight. But also, yeah, maybe not 10, maybe not Masterhood, maybe 7, 8. You of course you do want to have some level of skill so that it's not just some passionate teacher that's giving misinformation or
Yeah.
but maybe not.
Maybe this
Who knows?
opinion is really out there, but
Okay.
I don't like ladder awards, and I don't think
No,
we
I
should
hate 'em too.
require them for anything. And I wish we didn't have them. I like the idea of masterhood as recognizing somebody who is at the top of their craft, because I think that's cool if somebody is putting in that work. Recognizing them makes them feel good, and that's nice. I like making people feel good. And honestly, I kind of wish we didn't have the ladder, because people, they'll do their crafting or they'll do their fighting, and they're always thinking like, how do I get the next rung? How do I get the next award so that I can be a master? When I wish people would think more about I want to improve on this skill, and maybe that'll be tied to an award, but it isn't always, and that can be frustrating to people too.
Ladder hating comrade, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Kanye would completely agree with both of you.
I think a lot of that ladder awards and things are taken from in my opinion, like gaming, like video games and RPGs. Like you gain levels, you gain abilities, you gain achievements. It's all based on what you achieve, and you get shiny things. I think that's kind of what ingrained itself in the way we play our game, and that's how our award structure is now set up, based off earning achievements for doing things. So
I do like achievements.
Video game, right? We don't have strict. It's too subjective to be a video game. We're not hard coded.
Yeah, it does make it very difficult, especially with things that are not quantitative, like service paths and stuff like that, or less quantitative. But I mean, part of it is the culture that we've developed and sustaining that culture, and it's a horrible way to run anything. I agree, but every business, every group has their own culture, and Amtgard is just relies on that a lot because of the award system, and it has its ups and downs. Has a lot of downs. I agree. If I had started it from the very beginning, I probably would have been okay with no awards, and I'm still conceptually okay with that. But I like getting shinies. I like my achievements.
I mean, I do think it's important to recognize people, because somebody comes out, they make stuff, and honestly, giving somebody their first award is super fun, because they're like, what? I made this thing so that I can enjoy LARP, and also you're giving me this cool paper and bringing me up in front of everyone to say, look at what a good job this person did? That's a great moment, but I don't know. I feel like I like that bit, but I don't like the middle bits.
Yeah.
I like seeing somebody reach the top, and I like rewarding people for like getting into it. But I just don't know what to do about the middle bits where people are slogging through their 5th and their 6th and their 7th order, trying to like find the one thing to tell the monarchy that they're ready for the next one. I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels weird to me.
I
And
think.
a lot of go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say. I think it's something we could kind of learn from other games that don't have the award standardization and the strict path. You know, that you can bring enjoyment. You can still have people be passionate about a craft or a field, even if there's not a hard award system there. You know, like I know it might be a curse word, but like like Beligars, people are still passionate about making good crafts and quality
Yeah.
things. Like you see beautiful crafting done there, and there's no award system. You see incredible fighters in that game. I mean, it's a very fighting centric game, but incredible fighters, and they get recognized. And like the fighter Bakhdar, he's like a warlord equivalent in their game, but they don't have a standardization for it. It's just kind of something that's been done. Locke might be able to. They may be able to give me the name. I can't remember it. It's like some orcish name or troll name.
Oh yeah, I don't remember that either. I mean, the beginning and end, like Heron was saying.
Makut. Yeah,
Oh,
there we go.
Makut,
Somebody's
yeah.
got it.
Oh, Grumpiest Gus, it's Gustav.
Thank you, Gustav.
I like the beginning and the end, but you can have a lot of people get discouraged because of those middle bits, especially near the end. I never did things for awards. I am doing all the things I would want to do regardless of the award system. However, not getting the awards can sour me on a project sometimes. Like, you did so good. Like, if I did something that was amazing and everyone looked at it and like, and just got overlooked, eventually, like, the idea that I deserved it would get stuck in my head because I've done all these things because it's there. And so I would get discouraged or get burnt out because I'm not getting the recognition that the book or the rulebook says I should have. And that's that. I think that is the major downfall that our game has. Because I think Splu was saying, like, yeah, everyone's going to do what they want to do, regardless if there's an award or not. Belgarth is a good example of that. Because they have wonderful crafters and they have good fighters and they have people running events without awards, and it's not for money either because it's a free to play game just like Amtgard. So I think without the award system, we'd still have the same stuff we have now, except we'd have less angst and like discouragement. Unum disappeared.
Culture, right?
It's
All right, so we've successfully we've reached the conclusion of talking about Masterhood. Let's remove Masterhood, guys. We did it.
No, I think you can keep Masterhood. Remove the steps, the ladders, the 1 through 10.
Yeah.
I don't know. We could literally take out the steps. You could have like somebody starts on something. They're like an apprentice garber,
Unofficial,
whatever.
that's like a squire.
Yeah, and that's still an occasion to like bring them up before the court and say, "Hey, look at what a good job this person did. They're doing garb now."
Yeah.
And then maybe like a middle step, and then masterhood. I don't know. Occasions to like recognize people for their work are nice, but like 10 of them is a lot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they do get, and like with Rowana and stuff, you get the first ones really fast, and then when they start slowing down, you're like, where did I mess up? What am I doing wrong? It can be stressful.
Yep.
Master is stressful. I mean, I'm only 6 in anything, right? That's like where the easy part ends. 6. So I have no idea what masterhood is really, what it takes to be one. I do know that it takes dedication and focus and drive and passion.
And synergy.
Synergy.
I guess we're starting to sound like the SCA award system, which that could be true. I don't know that system very well.
I'm not familiar with it.
A lot of people seem to like the SCA, so
yeah, they definitely have a lot of people doing it for the fun of doing it, and they have in the academic stuff. Like I actually one person was a translator of Arabic, like ancient Arabic, like medieval Arabic, and so I used their translation of a cookbook in my high level writing course. And if we didn't have the SCA, that guy probably wouldn't have translated that. And so they're actively in the academic field, and some of the academics they like doing SCA because they're academics and they can research for fun. So I know that they have higher levels of in some areas. I'm not sure all areas, and they don't have as rigid a structure as we do. Oh, I thought we were about to have an SCA discussion in our chat, but Brenier decided not to have that.
Oh man. We hit all the points. That's awesome.
Heron, when you first started Amtgard and you were introduced to the award system, what was your initial thought before you got to this thought, or is it always the same?
So I started 4 years ago, just about, actually, almost 4 years ago to the day. It was sometime in mid-September. I didn't know anything about awards. I showed up and I heard that there was this like medieval-ish LARP kind of thing showing up. So I made myself a tunic. I learned how to sew because I'm like, I don't want to be that silly person who shows up with all the medieval people and they're wearing jeans. Turns out, showed up. I would have fit in probably.
Yeah.
But
wish more people thought
sometime
like you.
like a couple months in, like we were doing some mid-rain or end-rain court, and I got like an Order of the Garber and maybe a Griffin. It was like a couple of words right away. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I made these things, and it's fun to be recognized. Like, pretty much always it's fun to be recognized. I think most people would agree on that. And then, like, over time, I kind of learned more about it. Like, I learned that was something that you needed to do if you wanted to be a knight. And like, I learned about some more high level stuff because I'm like, oh, I've got a first level Order of the Garber. Like, what's an example of somebody who's like a Master Garber? And I talked to some people about that, and it got me a little bit more interested in sewing. Just knowing that, like, that there were people participating in the same hobby who were striving to be really good at it, and it inspired me to be really good at it. I don't think it inspired me to like strive for that same level, but I wanted to make cool stuff. And then, like, over time, obviously, I've kind of soured on the idea of flatter awards. But
do you know what brought that about?
Yeah, just people being salty. People saying, "Oh well, I made this project and I should have gotten an award, but you know that monarch, they don't like me. They didn't do it." Or somebody like, "I'm gonna work on this project so that I get this award." I'm like, it just kind of, whether it's intentional or not, it kind of tweaks a lot of people's motivations. And maybe I'm idealistic, but I really wish people would do things just because they wanted to more often.
Yeah.
I'm not super goal oriented. I just like making cool stuff. So maybe that's a difference. Like, I don't really have a goal. Well, there's a couple of reasons I don't want to be a knight, but I don't really feel a need to be the best. I just want to make cool stuff for myself and have fun with other people.
So, what about you, Unum? I'm curious for your perspective because you're pretty high up there, and I think your skill has not been rewarded as much as I think it might have deserved. So what do you think about when you first started? What was your first introduction to the award system and your first perspective of it?
So, really, when I started back, which is I guess now 5 years ago, it was a defunct park that was just getting restarted, so we didn't really have the awards weren't really a big thing yet, and I got my first awards the day I was leaving my last day at Amtgard before I moved up here. So it's I've always naturally, like, even when I first started, like in 04, I made a ton of like bamboo weapons and the worst pool noodle weapons. Like, I had a whole arsenal. So like, but I just did it because I wanted to do it. And I did the exact same thing when I came back. It's just I just started cranking out weapons and just doing it because I wanted to. And I guess it did. I started working on my armor. Sorry, my cat is right next to me.
That is great. Let him stay.
So I did my I did some like basic leather armor just because I wanted to, and when I moved up here, I got my third owl. So I got 2 owls for just stuff I've made the day I left, and then I got my third owl for a bracer I made when I moved up here because people thought it was really cool, and I was like, well, maybe I could continue on that path. I mean, I like doing it, and so I didn't really think good or bad about it. I was like, this is just something to do in the game aside from fighting, which fighting is what I love to do. Probably more than anything in the game is just ditching and sparring. So,
Sploob, I know you've had a love-hate relationship sometimes. So, what is your like original impression of the award system, and what you come to believe about it, and what do you believe about it now?
Okay. Well, when I first started the game, all I wanted to do was fight. That's all I cared about. I was like, wanted to be a stick jock, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, I want to become a warlord, and then I was bad, and I'm bad at fighting, and so it's an unachievable thing. Like, I couldn't get an award in fighting. I couldn't even get a 3 streak, in a tournament or a bear pit. So it's kind of discouraging. But like, I think I played 2 days in. I went and bought a bunch of linen and made my first tunic. Actually, I might be able to share it. I don't know if I can share.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. I made this tunic. Um, it was
It's not popping up
my
yet.
okay. Well, I'm trying to show it. Anyway, I made
Okay.
this first tunic.
Oh
It was
yeah.
after the second day I played, and I spent a lot of time. I think I was like 12 hours into this project.
Yeah. So I'm blowing it up there for a second.
I taught
Okay.
myself how to sew to make this, and I got a first Garber, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." I was super excited about that award, and so I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make garb all the time and do all kinds of sewing." So I got really into sewing, teach myself sewing. So I made the shield, cover next, and I saw the top, like, Lady Armstrong was like considered like a good version, like a master or something like that at the time when I was starting 4 years ago, and her stuff was very centralized on applique, and so I was like, I'm gonna get really good at applique, and so I started doing like intricate applique designs and sewing.
Hmm.
Little did I know, I didn't know anything about applique. Sure, I could cut fabric and I could sew it on and have nice lines, but my applique durability was garbage. The sealing of the seams was bad. It was falling apart. Like, that shield started fraying really fast. The applique on my tunics was fraying really bad. My seams weren't holding together. I knew nothing about making a durable product, just a pretty product. And
You know,
I got a lot of awards for things looking good, but it never took into account the overall durability.
hmm.
And what soured me, I don't want to say I'm soured on it in general. I think just seeing people do it without the awards made me see that there was more to it than the awards, and people only doing it for the awards kind of soured me as well. Same with what Heron said. What she was saying is pretty on point there. People complaining about not getting something they believe they deserved. It takes the fun out of it.
It's actually really funny. I made my first tunic out of like polar fleece, whatever it was. It It was kind of awful, honestly. Like, the seams were super bad. The second tunic I made is actually the one I'm wearing right now that was also by Lady Armstrong. Her pattern that she put online. I was like, wow, applique, that's super cool. And like technically, this tunic's still like in one piece, but like, let me see if I can get in the camera. Like, all my seams are like fraying and open and stuff, and they have been for years. I got, I think, like a third garber for this tunic, and it looks okay, but I kind of experienced the same thing where it's like, wow, I'm gonna do that cool thing, and then like the quality was trash, but.
I guess that kind of comes back to the not having the appropriate people look at the work for the being judged, and that extends to awards, not just Dragon Master or ANS competitions.
So I think a 6 in Garber is probably more than I deserve, but my stuff looked good. But yeah.
Oh, I'd say 6 might be appropriate, maybe a 5, but 7 definitely is when you start looking at the overall, not just one angle. You have to start improving a little bit. So I don't think you're necessarily in the wrong spot, but I also don't know that much about sewing. Does anyone have? Am I the only one that's worked on the service paths, or is there anyone else? I've got to look at your orcs. I'm sorry.
Which is a smith a service path?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think that's technically my highest. Yeah, I think that's the only 7th order I have.
And
so I am technically on that path.
Is it mostly from running battle game or designing battle games and stuff like that?
I'm going through. It looks like I have a 7th owl also, but I believe the most recent one was for running tournaments, including the women's and non-binary tournaments. I think I got the one before that from trying to scroll through here. Oh, it's not labeled. I think that one was from helping with Shattered Kingdoms.
Oh, I'm glad that you got that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of half and half between like running tournaments, running battle games, a little bit of helping with events, but it's all pretty much focused around like battle game and event stuff. I don't think, other than Shattered Kingdoms, there's been much quest involved. Not many like teaching classes or anything. Just awards from playing Amtgard, which is why it's my favorite.
Well, okay, Unum, how about you? Or
I don't have. I have very low, like roses and lions and stuff. So, mainly my service has been focused on either teaching classes, or I've been regent and a few times and champion once, but mainly it's been local service, and I'd like to, run kingdom workshops and things at events. Like, I'd love to do things like that. It's just working around my mundane life.
Yeah. Swoob is your I know you've definitely done service, but what are your award ish? What part are you on the ladder?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you actually brought up this topic, because it was something I wanted to say and then I just kind of tipsied out and forgot. It was so I have 5 roses. It's not a lot, and four lions. But it was kind of like my passion stopped being from myself creating crafts and like helping recognize other people who are doing well in the crafts and helping get other people into the crafts. I think is kind of what I really got into, and so that just kind of fed into the service side. Like, I wanted to run tournaments and have them go better and help at events and like just help people enjoy the game better. I think is kind of how that happened. But
Right.
it all stemmed from my desire to improve it at the crafts themselves, but then it came down to helping other people improve. And so, like, I don't know, I think NPCing became one of the most fun parts of the game for me. I don't think there's a master NPC, but
Not because now you want to role play.
Right. There's the mask, but that's just a regular.
You also get dragons for role play.
Yeah.
But it's hard it's hard to pioneer that path because usually it peters out around 5 or 6 for role play.
But I mean, so with NPCing, yeah, that service, I want to make crafts for service. I want to give things away. I want to donate things. That's what I'm passionate about. Not like making the best thing, but making cool stuff that people want and giving it to them. I think that's the passion I would have in this game. That would be my masterhood path.
Well, I
So
think
it would be the
actually,
service side of crafting.
I think it's really important to highlight actually because like we've already talked about, the wars are subjective and they might not be the best thing for the game, but you're doing things that are cross pollinating to the pass, regardless of the awards that are given for that, because it's what you want, it's your passion, it's what you want to do, which I think is more common than we give it credit for. Um, but I'm a bit of an optimist, despite not acting like an optimist. I believe a little glimmer of hope for humanity. But I guess I was asking because we haven't really talked too much about server side paths. We've only mostly talked about owls, garbers. We touched on uh, warlord and the sword path. But maybe it's because the people I chose, I guess, maybe I didn't choose too roundabout or some as well rounded as maybe I should have. But Heron is on the path. You're not. Are you actively working on Smith, or is it just because you're enjoying it?
I guess my answer for any of the paths is that I'm not actively working on any of them. I'm actively, like obviously not right now, but I'm actively playing Amtgard, and because battle gaming is my favorite thing and running tournaments is really fun for me, uh, that's probably my focus if I had to pick one. Uh, but it's hard to say that I'm pursuing it per se, which I guess makes me a weird panelist on this, but I'm
It kind
pretty
of
sure
does,
opinions.
but I want that opinion. I ask because I know you all have different motivations for what you do in Amtgard, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're along the path. But we're all long-time players that are all really involved in the game are somewhere along the path, regardless if they chose to actively pursue that or not. And I think you're a good example of that. So huzzah!
Actively pursuing service feels dirty to me.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, bad intentions. I don't know why I view it that way, but it feels dirty. I think that being passionate in the craft leads to service, and doing things out of kindness and making things better for the game just happens as a byproduct of enjoyment.
I agree. And like for service, most of the people I talk to do it because they enjoy it. For example, with me, like when I first started and I was introduced to the pass system, like I of course wanted to be a freaking warlord. I wanted to be a sword knight, right? That's what a lot of people want to do because our game's about fighting a lot. But I still did a lot of service stuff. I did barbecues at the park and fed people and ran an office all the time because I wanted to create a really good environment. So like I had no intention of becoming a flame knight, and so yeah, I think people should do things for the enjoyment, and I think most people do. But when you get to your higher awards, you can start feeling entitled when you're looked over, and that's where we talked about earlier. The award system kind of falls apart. But since you're at 7, Heron,
Mhm.
and Smith, it might come to the point where people are going to look to you, and they may already be looking to you because of the work that you've done for advice and for like asking you, are you going to advance on that path like I'm doing right now? Not to put you on spot, but like, what do you think about it's things you want to do, but obviously you want to do them better. You
Mhm.
might. So, what is your mindset when you think about improving your Smith skill set?
Um, I think it's kind of complicated because Masterhood is seen as such a stepping stone to knighthood, and I actively do not want to be a knight. It's like it doesn't really matter to me because I don't even know if I would accept a Masterhood, because it is like a stepping stone to knighthood. Uh, Maybe, probably. Uh, but I don't know. I look at the things that I've done, and like anybody, when I'm like working on a new event or a new tournament or something, I see like what went wrong last time. What can we improve on? How can we make it more fun for people? How can we make sure more people are able to participate in a way that's comfortable to them? And then I try and fix it. And if that's something that winds up being awarded for, that's fine. But like the focus is always like how can I make the game more fun for more people? And I think that lines up pretty well with what the Smith Award is about, but if it doesn't, that's fine too.
So I guess I'm the only one that is like on the service path at like Masterhood, and I've done Flame almost on Smith, and I guess I'm a Master Crown, which I should mention. Ooh, cheer, bit of Welsh. Woo! I'll take a drink.
Yeah.
So I'm along those paths, and I don't want to interview myself. But since we haven't really talked about them very much, I guess I've given my opinions on them, so maybe I don't have much to add. But are there any
Can I
questions?
interview you about them?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Like, do you guys have any questions for those paths that we haven't really talked too much about? So yeah, Heron can take the interview, can be the moderator now.
Okay, great. All right, so Baelnorn, you're on the service path. What are you doing to reach the top? Where are you at, and what do you think you need to do to become the best around?
Sunbuns are awesome. Take a drink for that one too. I guess the best way to talk about that is my Smith, because I'm so close to, I'm so high up there, so I have to think about how to evolve the craft.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, more oof. Sorry, I shouldn't turn this into a drinking game. But so I look to like always doing better. Like for Shattered Kingdoms, it's not my only vehicle for Kingdom Smith because that's ridiculous. But when I look at Shattered Kingdoms, I always look, how do I what did I do wrong last year? How do I improve upon what I did wrong, and how can I make it more fun for other people? So I'm reevaluating my own work, looking at other people's to see how what I can borrow from them and improve upon to shape my own body of work. So it's being aware of other events, because I'm doing it for events mostly, is being aware of other events, going to other events, seeing how they ran, asking questions if they do something unique, asking how did they think of that, how did they come, or how did they implement it, how successful was it, then when it comes back to me and I want to rework it, how can I improve upon that? How can I integrate it into my own ideas, to what we were talking about? Again, it's like laughing. Yeah, integrating it in such a way as Uriel is like making it yourself. So that's how I view the Smith path and most paths in general. But with Smith, it's looking at my peers and seeing what I can do to separate myself from my peers.
Okay.
Question along that line for you, Belnern.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Smith, though, so much of Smith is team projects. So, how do you feel that people should be equally rewarded among that project? How do you think that works?
I think
The person
everyone
that's the autocrat be the highest reward.
you should not necessarily have to be an autocrat to get the highest Smith award. I want to move away from that. That was something that actually happened to me, ironically enough, before or after the award standardization, but before people accepted or understood the award standardization. When I got my Masterhoods, I was told, Bailman, you gotta run events. You're not gonna get that knighthood. So it's not just about being the autocrat. It's about doing your work, doing it well, evolving your work, improving upon your work, and if you're running or if you're autocrating or if you're being um a crat in a certain position, it's about leading the team and managing what you have. So you could potentially become a master smith by doing warcrat stuff, potentially. If you kept going along that path, improving, doing better events. Well, not necessarily better, but mastery level events, consistency. So I could see something besides just autocrat getting a master smith.
Example of that, I think, is DeVry has been really successful in warcratting and things like that.
Yeah,
battle game running. So
and
Do you
Cormac
think
is
people get like carried by their teammates?
they can
Do
be.
you think autocrats might get more recognition because people within their team happen to work their ass off and then did incredibly well? And
Yes.
maybe undeserving awards again?
I mean, unabashedly, yes, that's happened. Where the team was so good, the leader may not have been good because the team was good. The leader looked good, and I've seen that. I've seen the awards go out for that, and maybe it's because I pay more attention because I'm looking at these events more critically for these awards and for proficiency that I may see that happen, but it definitely happens. Don't like it, and I would like to avoid that in the future. People in position to give out high level awards should be a little bit more critical and kind of dive in a little bit and investigate, and I think that's part of it. I'm sorry, I'm just reading chat. There's Brenier said a couple things. Brenier says, for me, my joy comes from people enjoying what I do, which may be because I am pretty max in what I do. Yeah, I mean, my cooking, for example, like, I don't do it to make me feel good. Well, I make it to feel good because I make other people feel good. And so doing it makes me feel good because other people enjoy it. Because most cases, I seem to do an okay job, and I just like feeding people. And it's like I hate cooking for myself. I almost never do it, but I like cooking for other people. That's a good example of making people happy, I guess. So, you guys have any other service-oriented questions or crown-oriented? Is there anyone else on the crown path? I know Splee was at 4, and I think Heron's definitely done some crown stuff.
I don't know. Crown's kind of weird for me because I was awarded my 7th crown, but the way that they were awarded by our kingdom, like, they used a rubric of some kind, but I didn't super agree with it, so I gave back most of my crown awards because they're supposed to be for like reigns that you did a good job in, and I had a couple of reigns where I just kind of didn't do much. Like I was there, I did the required things, but I don't know. Crown seems weird because it's one where if you are volunteering for monarchy and you're doing a pretty okay job, you'll get there eventually. It feels like a difficult one to pursue because, like, I honestly don't like the change. I didn't like orders. I didn't like how it worked before either with the crown points because,
No, it was
like,
terrible.
the last thing you want is somebody to volunteer to run your park or run your battle games just because they want to be a knight. It helps a little bit now if people are following the guidelines of, like, you should get the award for if you do a good job rather than just doing it like before. But I'd rather those positions be filled by people who definitely just want to do it rather than people who want to become knights. And, like, obviously there's overlap. A bunch of people who are knights really care about the game, but I don't know. It feels weird because it feels like if you like playing, you like running your park, you're gonna get there eventually. And going faster than that seems counterproductive.
Octavian says, if crown awards and belts didn't exist, we'd put more importance on this. That's probably true. I would like to say though, for any awards like 1 through 4, 1 through 5, they're not give me's, but like for crown for the first couple awards, I would definitely say if you're not a detriment and you did okay and you did something, the first couple of crowns you should definitely be given just to encourage people to continue doing it. Just like any other path. Like, you might not make the best sword, but you made a sword, so you get now.
Yeah.
So I think crown shouldn't always be you exceeded expectations for each level of crown. I think it should be viewed similar to the other paths. But the higher level, for sure, would be like that. But that's just my opinion.
Oh, I see a comment from Loctavian00.
Oh.
Old Gatekeeper Knights seem to think you'd have to be Monarch to be a Crown Knight, but again, that's Knight Talks, not Masterhood.
Yeah.
I do think it's relevant, though, because I think there's even less of a separation between Masterhood and Knighthood for Order of the Crown. Because, like, what would you do as a Masterhood project? Just have a really good reign? Like, I think you're right that some people would consider a Kingdom Monarch reign to be that, like, capstone project, but, like, not everybody who wants to do the other roles is going to be a good monarch. And I don't think forcing people to do that role if they want to be a knight is smart.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't want to be a
Masterhood
kingdom monarch. Really.
Masterhood requires people to vote for you. Man.
In the past, that has been like a problem, and there's still some knights. You say that it is less the case now, thankfully, about the monarch position being required for knighthood, and I think it shouldn't be either. You should just do good in your office. If it's at the appropriate level, you get what you get. I mean, but let's see.
Brynjar is mentioning about stacking awards for excellent reigns.
Yeah, we should definitely bring that up. How do you all feel about the one award being given out, which is crowns, to be able to be stacked for the same thing? No other award
Is it
is
the
like
only
that.
one?
It's the only one that I'm aware of, that I can recall.
I don't think I actually agree, because if you get, like, if you're really new to the game and you get, like, a 50 streak at a tournament, then the way that a lot of people will say, like, we're going to catch you up to what you should have, is they'll say, well, you got a 3 streak and then a 5 streak and then a 7 streak.
But that's not
just from one streak.
That's not for the same thing, though, because it's different streaks.
Well,
it might be one streak, but
here's another one.
Right.
Okay, you're brand new to the game.
Okay.
You made this cool ass dress, and somebody's like, "Wow, you should really have 4 orders of the Garber." We can't give you 4 at once, but we can say, "Well, for making it, you get 1 order of the Garber. For that applique on there, you get a 2nd order of the Garber, and for that sick hand embroidered trim that you made, that's a 3rd order of the Garber." And, like, I've seen that kind of thing happen.
I've seen it with armor. It's like, you've got it for the bracer, you got it for the shoulder pad, you got it for the,
It's been given out.
piece.
Should not be given out. That's not what the award standardization says. And the players, I hate the secret society thing, but like, if you're for the players, like if you're in the night, like for me, I will remember that someone got 4 orders for the same thing, and that will matter to me later on if I have a vote. So they're
gross.
I mean, so like they skipped a step. I mean, they got these awards unfair, and it's not necessarily their fault, but I guess it kind of makes me look like an asshole. But it's honest.
Honesty is good.
So I think I think it might happen, but it's not supposed to happen. In that case,
Y'all are dinosaurs.
I know. Pathetic says we are grumpy elephants. It's very true. But I think Crown is the only one that explicitly say that it is supposed to that stacking can happen. You're not supposed to stack awards. Is it? I mean, according to the award standardization, which I want to stay to.
Yeah, I guess to get back to the actual point, I think that it's kind of weird, but on the other hand, like, if you're doing 1 office a reign, which is like the maximum recommended dosage of monarchy, like, honestly, it's probably higher than maximum recommended dosage. If you want to get 10 orders, you need to be in monarchy for 5 years.
Yeah, it's forever.
And if you only give out 2,
without any breaks,
and it has to be good.
I mean, it's kind of encouraging people to put in that 5 years because it's the one path that you could do in a year. I mean,
It's 5 years of running every rain and doing every rain after at least the first 3 at excellent quality. That's disgusting.
yeah,
What if it
I
was
guess
just stacking up to like a 6th level and
I
then
think that,
a single?
I honestly haven't looked at how it is at the moment, but I think that the way that they encourage people to do it is if it's like a higher level office, like a Kingdom Monarchy or whatever, and they're at like a 0, then you're supposed to give them a couple orders for that because it's extra effort. Where if they're doing like a Shire reign, they might only get 1.
they had a suggested not rubric, but a suggested like scale for giving out awards based on their offices and the amount of people they dealt with. But that was just for conversion. That chart was not meant to be a like this is how it is for the rest of Amtgard's life. But they that's where that came from, and I think that's not a bad thing at all. What are you doing? You're huge.
Zoom it in.
All right. So I think I think you should stack. I think it should be used with caution, I guess, and just but it should be stated, but there should be some moderation, and we're setting that because we live. I'm not zooming in, guys. But we should.
You're taking something that had a point system and you're turning it into a different point system.
Yeah.
It's like the stock market, right? You take your shares and you split them. That's what's happening. So what was once a single share is now 2 or 3 shares.
See, Thadagrin had something. Opening up to Order of the Crown allows orders for Shire and Barony positions as well as things like GMR or Rules Rep and even BOD. Really say people are just having fun with bits. It's awesome. Thank you. Thadagrin, I agree with everything you said except the BOD. Maybe that's just old tradition to me, but like it's literally you're dealing with the legal stuff. I don't know if we should start incentivizing BOD because people will do it just to get the awards because that's the culture we've done.
Should we encourage people to like run for Kingdom Monarch or Prime Minister just for the awards?
Nope. Not really. I mean, we could say that for anything, though.
Remove Crown Knight.
I mean,
That's what I'm hearing.
It is the weirdest order. It really is.
I feel like
titles of nobility is
titles of nobility every time. Remove Crown Knight.
Yeah, Uriel said earlier in the chat that titles have never had really a big importance, and removing Crown Knight would give the importance back on the titles. So that would be an interesting move. I don't think we'll ever see it, but I think that is a good point to have been brought up.
Make titles great again.
Yeah. See, Loctavian says Crown Knight and Flame Knights are directly linked. Remove Crown Knight. Put emphasis on titles, but that'll never happen. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. That'll never happen. But I think it's appropriate. Thadagrin disagrees, doesn't think that it would give any importance on titles.
Really?
I'm going to go ahead and ask Thadagrin why, and when or if they respond, I will bring that up. But I think it would, because for doing like positions, it's the only thing you could get. So people are like, "Oh wow, you did this because you did this and that." I think people would like or would seek them more. I don't know if they'd seek them more, but people would be a little bit more impressed if we started emphasizing titles. I think, and it'd also be more varied and really. I think it'd be more interesting.
Yeah, we need more pomp. More pomp in the game. Titles become cooler. Titles become cooler if the desirable award doesn't come before the titles.
Yeah.
I don't know how you incentivize title beyond it being cool and you getting a special call out at like court or something if you were to do something like that. I don't know how you award it like in-game award besides. No. Nope. Nope. Not gonna go there.
Why not?
Nope. It's like you can't own land in the game, you can't own people in the game, so no, that would be unfun.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, true serfdom would be terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I am trying something with noble houses because taking my title and doing something roleplay just to make it more interesting. But that's not built in the game. That's just me taking an initiative and hard to do with COVID. But I guess that's a little bit covered some topics that we were covering at titles, which was our last Ducal Drinks. They all kind of feed into each other because it's all the same game. Eventually, we'll get to topics that are inter-game related or might not be specific game related that we'll be talking about on here. But for the last one, this one, and the next one or two, we'll continue this theme of Amtgard. But we'll stay within the realm of LARP. But there's been a lively discussion in the chat about knighthood classes and titles, different opinions. It's hard to bring that to the live chat, but they're talking about basically classes. Knighthood being nice because it relates to getting classes, and titles don't have that, therefore they won't have the same representation. I think I kind of distilled that into the basic topic that's going on. Let's see. Sorry, I'm reading what Bernier said. No, I was talking about land has been used for titles. We used to have role play storylines based on the imaginary land division. That's true. I remember that back in the day. So when role play was a little bit more common between parks. Not saying it doesn't happen now, but I remember back in the day, titles would be gifted land, like role play land, and then people would role play about that, and there'd be conflicts over that land, stuff like that. So that'd be one way to interject an importance into titles is to have land attached to it. We want to role play in this LARP, I guess. But that's codifying roleplay, and we don't do that in Amtgard. More talking.
Make roleplay good.
Make roleplay good, yeah. And that's going to be another topic at some point, just roleplay, because some people don't consider us a LARP, believe it or not.
I don't. I consider a soft LARP.
I would consider soft LARP appropriate, but it's still a LARP. Yeah, but that's...
I think it's more like a hard and pointy LARP with more fighting.
Yeah.
Now, SCA, that's a LARP.
There you go.
Yes, yeah. They don't want to tell. Don't tell them that.
LARP, SCA's a LARP.
Yeah.
Airsoft. That's my favorite LARP.
Oh, live action war game. I haven't heard that term, a log, but I guess that would also be appropriate. I don't know if I like saying log. Log. I don't know how you say that. Did anyone else have any questions about service? Kind of covered that, but I wanted to make sure we had talk about Masterhood for service because we talked a lot about.
Did you mention in Rose how you believed that you elevated it?
I did not
In our region.
But basically, with Rose, I picked something. I fell into the role of the feast guy because I did a lot of feasts. But as I started getting more higher in the ladder, it's not because I did the ladder, it's just because for my own edification, I would get a system for doing the feast. I would improve upon the feast. I make sure the majority of people like my food. Didn't poison them. I gave them enough to eat so they're full, and I was on time. That sounds like it's crazy, but that didn't happen when I started. Those things were not
poisoning them was Masterhood.
Oh,
That's the
Evolution.
elevation of the craft.
Elevation
Doing
of the
the
craft.
bare basic.
I mean, what I came from, there were some good feastocrats, and they did some amazing things. But I had so many bad experiences. Like Gustav Uriel can talk about that in chat, but we just had some pretty bad feasts, and like I could do better, and so I went about trying to do better, and I continually um, improved upon my system until I got to like a system that worked for most feasts, and I just tried to make sure that I kept to that system, evolved it, changed it. Something didn't work, fix it. Um, yeah, just like any other craft, really. But I did it for cooking specifically, and I I'm still not a novice, but I'm not a professional, but I did some things that I consider pretty amazing as a hobby for food cooking, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I mean, that's how I evolved service, and that applies for everything. Like let's talk about Fritz for example. He's not going out there and pushing himself, but he is going out there. He's doing bigger, better things. He's consistently doing service, and so I could definitely see him being a master at some point because he is continually doing his service. He's doing it at all levels, local level, KLEs, campouts, and he's slowly taking on more responsibility and broadening his service. A lot of it has to do with cleaning and maintaining the site. That seems to be his MO right now. But I like you have to ask him about his own perspective. But I see him continuing to do more and to hone in and do what's not necessarily asked of him. To just that would be Rose Path, service path, and you could do that. You kind of just take an area that's service, and you just kind of go with it and make it your own. And that's how you kind of get identified as a master in the Rose Path. It's very open ended, just like art. I mean, there's so many different level or paths of art that you can take to get master a master dragon. Same thing for Master Rose. You just have to pick your field, stick to it. Maybe you're getting a little bit more niche, but you're getting more honed in your craft. And the same thing applies to service. I guess they are talking about bad feasts in the chat.
It may be something that doesn't really fall in the masterhood topic. I don't know. So if it is, just kick it out. But when it comes to mastery things, what about things that maybe aren't explicitly related to the game, but how they affect it? Because like within like dragons, you could have like people that are photographing the game and stuff like that. That they would fall into probably a dragon award, but really it's not thematic.
Mhm.
Do you have opinions on that kind of mastery, like how far it could go?
Like photography specifically, or the act of doing the photography for better enjoyment of the game.
I mean, yeah, I guess like the photography itself, like it's not really thematic to.
Okay, then yeah, I think at a certain level they're dragons until you get to the point where you're not doing it as art. Which is basically what you're saying. So people that are doing a service for Amtgard, I think that has a lot of overlap because you're taking an art as a service, and so you could go both ways. I don't know because it hasn't been done as a service, like at the high ends, to see how someone could evolve that. Because a lot of these things are just people evolving a certain thing that they like to do and then making a service out of it. Now, I think you could get service by doing photography stuff. Um, you want to get better at your photography too, but you could go around doing portraits of people and just not just taking snapshots of the day and sharing that. That's nice. That's kind of a lower stuff. But you start getting targeted stuff, and you start going in and like, I'm going to do a portrait for you for your orc, stuff like that. I want to tell a story with your art, and that could overlap with getting a dragon too because you're doing a series. But if you're focusing on and telling stories about Amtgard, I could see that being service and dragon. I think it could overlap, and it's hard to tell at the higher levels. But I think it could possibly be done. I'm not sure how to right now, honestly. But I think you can definitely take photography as a service. You can take art as a service, like donating, like Unum donated belt favors. That's a service. They're amazing art, and he could get art awards for his doing the belt favors, but he also did a service, and that should be recognized. So just because one part of it is a dragon doesn't mean it shouldn't also be a rose. Well, there's a lot of chat going on. I haven't paid attention to any of it. Oh, Thaddegrant says, I actually view photography of the events and editing it well and posting a body of work counts as service. Yeah, I agree. It can also count as art, but doing that, it's a lot of work. I don't know how many have you, I know Splu does photography and video editing, but editing can be a chore. I mean, it can be a lot more work than actually taking the picture. Just the time that you put into editing the content that you have. Let's see. Brinier says, my opinion, Master Owl and Dragon, many crafts being used or interpreted in numerous things. Taking pictures and recording events is service. The quality and style of photo would be Dragon or Owl, in my opinion. Yeah, and I think that is I haven't talked to everyone, but I think that is a discerning person's opinion at the higher levels that have been in this game for a long time. If you think about it a lot, you can break off the product itself and what the person is doing with it can be two different things. And I don't know how you view that. Uno, I'm going to ask you, since you're the last person I worked with that donated things, how do you view the difference between the art you made and the act of donating? Because you put a lot of time in making those objects, so that is also service along with art.
I mean, yeah, it's a hard question, I think, to answer because there's a lot of time put into it, whatever you're doing, but then you're just giving it away. You're doing it because you want to do it or you're asked to do it, and it's. I mean, honestly, it would be tough for me to even, because I haven't been in that position to award anything for someone doing that. So even though I've been the one that's done it, I wouldn't know how to award it. I would say giving it away, that initially makes me want to just give a service award for it.
Yeah.
So
I guess that leads into the question: double dipping awards, giving out two different awards for the same thing. It is not explicitly disallowed by the award standardization, but some people have strong opinions about why it should be done and why it shouldn't be done. So I guess, does everyone think about that? And how would you interpret that, and when it goes to a masterhood decision?
Well, culturally, I think a lot of people don't do it because there will be knights who say, well, I got 2 awards for the same thing. I'm not going to vote for them later. No offense.
No, that's true. I
think a lot of people
disagree with you.
Yeah, I think culturally that has become a norm where people are like, they might feel weird about it because they think other people will think it's weird. I think that as long as the awards are for two significantly different aspects of it, like if somebody spent 20 hours making some trim for a tunic, but the tunic's also nice, and they're at a pretty low award, that's probably fine to give them both a dragon and a garber. If somebody made a bunch of really nice swords, then giving them something for their service, but also for their owl. Like, if they made a bunch of really nice swords and gave them to their land, then the service of their time and donation, that's cool. Making the swords, that's cool. But it feels weird to be like, you made 3 identical swords. You get an owl, but also an owl for the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Spoop, did you have an opinion on that? I was going to bring up the chat here in a minute, but I wanted
to hear the question again. Sorry.
double dipping awards. So is it okay to give someone that created art that's beautiful a dragon, but they donated it, so they also gave time in the service to the club, so they'd get both a dragon for their work and a rose for the donation?
My opinion sucks here, because all I want to do is get rid of my work. That's the reason to make the work in the first place. So for me, I don't think so. I think if you're getting an award for creating it, you shouldn't get a service award. But if you don't want the creating award, you could definitely get the service one for donations. It's a bad take, and I know it is, but it's just my opinion.
That's good. That's why you're here, to give your opinion. So, talking about that specifically, Thagagram is basically saying donations shouldn't be given an award or it's a slippery slope, so maybe we should not give awards. I think that we should give at least material costs to people that are donating, and that would mitigate the concern about their buying awards, because they didn't put any money, they only put time. And then that would be, that I think would solve that problem for me. So, that's one concern when giving service awards for donations, is that people just feel like they're buying awards. But if you, for donations, pay for the donation, but don't necessarily pay for the time, then it might be a lot easier to swallow, I guess.
That makes sense.
Sorry, I'm just catching up on chat here for a second.
Yeah, so like in the case of like the Shield of Balance for like Shattered Kingdoms that I made, I intended to donate it anonymously and get no awards for it, but I ended up getting an owl for it. But I think I would have rather had it be a service than a crafting accolade in that case, since I was giving it away for an auction.
Yeah, maybe I think it was you that mentioned it, Sploo, but you should talk to the people that are getting the awards before they get the awards.
Yeah, ask their opinion.
So that's not necessarily a bad idea in this case. The Octavian says, I'm paraphrasing, but recognizing someone who did a big or basically buying awards doesn't really happen. I agree. I haven't really seen that happen. I've seen accusations of it, but I don't see it happening really. So I'm not sure about that reason or not, but I understand why some people are concerned.
We got the money to buy an award, let him.
So Beta Walsh has gone to bed. I think we've done pretty good with service, unless there's any other questions you three had about service and how it applies to Masterhood.
It is getting a little bit late, so I might have to go as well.
Yeah, I think we're wrapping it up. Well, let's see what Brynjar said first. Do you feel about the concept of having vigil for someone achieving Masterhood of Paragon? Sure, this will be the last topic, if you have a few more minutes.
Sure.
Should someone have a vigil for their Masterhood?
I think that when somebody gets an award that's like at that top level, I think it's really neat to see the kind of things that they decide to do to make it special for them and suit them. I think that vigils for knighthoods are really cool if people want to do them. Obviously, they're not mandatory. Not everybody does one. It feels a little bit different for Masterhood. Probably just because there isn't a tradition of it already. Same for Paragons. Like, I don't know. I think it really depends on what it means to the person, because I could definitely see somebody who's like really wanted to be a Paragon wizard for a really long time, and they want to do like something the night before where they like get all their friends together and play wizard tag or something. Whatever they want to do. Like, people should do something that's suitable for them. I'm not opposed to it. I don't know if I would do it, but it seems kind of neat.
Yeah. Either of you have an opinion?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like being if your big Masterhood award having some kind of vigil-like experience. Sure, vigil is very ceremonial in a knighthood sense, so definitely not the same. But like, yeah, if somebody is a crafter and they get a Masterhood, a display of like the crafts they're most proud of would be kind of cool. You know, like almost like a little museum or gallery of what they've done, or something like that. Service could be like it could be a whole thank you, like individual thank yous from people in the kingdom, or displaying thank yous, or maybe if somebody's like service was cooking, they have like a tasting or something like that. That would be really interesting. Like that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Another thing that would be kind of interesting is kind of the same thing issues that knighthood has, like, is whether the person wants it to be a surprise or not. So that also comes into play, so at that point, you kind of have to rely on their closest acquaintances on, if they do want it to be a surprise, if they've made that known, organize around it and make sure it's okay. But yeah,
definitely should be the wishes of the person getting the award should definitely be taken into consideration. I kind of like the idea running off what Sploop said, like kind of having like a display or like a diorama, like the old like diorama that you have for science fair or the poster board, talking about all their accomplishments. Maybe having a picture them doing like service back when they're younger and like what they're doing now, just so that people can understand the work that they put into getting the masterhood at the event. But, so, unless anyone has any final thoughts, does anyone have final thoughts?
I don't think so.
No, we did pretty well.
Yeah, I really appreciate every one of you staying up and coming out here for this. Everyone that was watching, I thank you for the chat and for bringing up the questions. I appreciate the community. And if you are interested in paying more attention to these kind of chats and stuff, there's a Discord that's been posted a couple times in chat. It's my Bale and Warren Discord, doing all my stuff. So consider joining that. It'll be easier to keep track of when I'm streaming and stuff like that. Doing beers with Bale and Warren in 2 weeks. Don't have a topic, so if anyone has anything that they want me to talk about and try to give a little lecture on, please give me suggestions. I will always take them. Next Ducal Drinks, is in a month. We'll be talking about knighthood. I have not lined up anyone to be on the panel yet, but that will be what's up for discussion. I'll try to have three panels other than myself. That seems appropriate. Thank you. Also, I am now a Twitch affiliate, so if you feel this content was worth supporting financially, you can get subscriptions or pay bits or whatever, but I'm going to be doing this anyways, and it's all free, so it's not that big of a deal. Also have a Patreon. If you're interested in that, send me a message. I don't have that on my Autobot message. It's also on my Twitch page. And I thank everyone for coming to this Ducal Drinks, and I hope you learned something. Goodbye.
Bye, friends.